Hey everybody, welcome back to the Home Service Super Summit. I am joined by an amazing entrepreneur. I'm so excited to be able to talk to him and let him share so much value that he has with you guys. We are welcoming Brian Scudamore, owner of OTE Brands, founder of 1-800-GOT-JUNK, Wow One Day Painting, Shack Shine, hundreds of locations in multiple countries. How did that begin?
Well, I think the entrepreneurial spirit was always in my blood. My grandparents had an army surplus store in San Francisco where I was born. I live in Vancouver, Canada today, but I used to go down and spend every summer, every Christmas vacation working in my grandparents' store. I used to love playing the game of business, watching them sell sleeping bags and tents and getting in on that. And I just loved watching how my grandparents took care of people. And that became the foundation of how I would do business. But the way I got started in business, it was that spirit of knowing how my grandparents did it. And I said, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to live that American Canadian dream. And there I was in a McDonald's drive-thru. I was one class short of graduation from 12th grade. And I said, I got to find a way to pay for college. All my friends are going. I don't want to miss out. And I'm in this McDonald's drive-thru. I see a beat up old pickup truck in front of me, plywood side panels built up on the box. And it said Mark's Hauling on the side, filled with junk. And it was an aha moment that just about hit me. And I said, I'm going to go buy my own truck, $700. Got out there, had my Ford F-100, and started hauling junk.
Wow.
And it was really a couple of weeks into the business that I had paid for the business. I had paid for that truck, was making money, and was having fun. And ironically, what funded my college education inspired me to drop out. I was learning much more about business by running a business more than I was studying in school. So I said to my father, who's a liver transplant surgeon, hey, Dad, I got some good news for you. And I had him sit down and they said, I'm dropping out of college. And he said, Brian, how is that good news? I said, it's great news. I'm learning more about business running one than studying. And so I'm going to grow this business full time. And the next day I got out there and bought a couple more trucks and started growing 1-800-GOT-JUNK.
So now that's interesting because you mentioned that conversation with your father, but I'm guessing it wasn't that quick of a conversation. I imagine that it wasn't just like, oh, okay, sweet, high five, go get him, son. I mean, what was that kind of like to have pressure and that backlash from family?
Yeah, it didn't end in a high five. I think, if my dad was going to give me 5 fingers, it certainly wasn't a big high five. He was choked. Really, here's my dad, who's a liver transplant surgeon who did more schooling than just about everybody I've met. And he said, listen, you got to value an education. And I said, I agree, but look at how much I'm learning, figuring this out. If you want to be a doctor, yeah, you got to go to school. If you want to be an entrepreneur, go buy a franchise. Go partner up with an entrepreneur who's been there, done it, who can teach you. So I said, I'm going to go out and figure this out. And what my dad didn't see at the time, he saw later. He said to me that day, he said, Bri, you got to finish your education. You got 1 year left. You're so close. And I said, well, this business opportunity might not be there a year from now if I go back to school. I might come back and there's a competitor who's beat me to it and done a better job and has that first mover advantage. I really want to prove that this business opportunity is right for the moment. I wanted to reinvent the junk removal space. And I said, if I choose to go back to school, the University of British Columbia, which was my last school of many, I said, it's going to be there a year from now, 10 years, 30 years from now. I can go back to school. So I made a tough choice that he didn't agree with. I do remember, though, going full circle about 10 years later, my dad sat down with me. We had a beer together. We were at actually the Entrepreneur of the Year Awards. And he looked at me and he goes, you made the right choice. And so I've got his support now, but it took a while and it was a tough decision. But entrepreneurs need to believe in their own vision, their own future, and themselves.
Man, I love that so much. And it's so powerful because I hear a similar story and a similar thread of entrepreneurs that dropped out of high school, dropped out of college, and maybe stopped their education, but never stopped learning. That education just keeps going through it.
Yeah, I learn by asking people questions. I learn by picking up the phone, sending an email, and asking other great entrepreneurs, I got a question. I'm facing a challenge. How have you solved this? One of the biggest pieces of learning for me, and I did this right when I got my business to $1 million, which took me 8 years to get there. And I said, I don't have college. I don't have that formal education, but I still need a network, a group of people I can learn from. So at $1 million in revenue, I joined something called EO. the time it was called the Young Entrepreneur Organization.
Right.
Today it's just the Entrepreneur Organization. We all got a little bit older, but 10,000 entrepreneurs across the planet that I can reach out to at any point in time and say, here's the challenge, here's the mistake I've made. What would you do, or what have you done? Great learning.
That's amazing. That's incredible. So you built your business up, $1 million, smooth sailing all the way from then on. No mistakes, no failures, just crushed it all the way from there up to the multi-million-dollar business that you are now, right?
Yeah, no failures, none. One of my favorite failures, and I wrote a book on failure. I actually called my book WTF. This is the book right here, but WTF, Willing to Fail. What's interesting is when my co-author and I, Roy H. Williams, the Wizard of Ads is what we call him, he does all our radio creative, and we got together and we wrote this book. And at the end of the book, the title jumped out. Just as Roy said it would. He's written a ton of books, and he goes, Brian, stop thinking as a branding guy that you need to start the book with the title. Write the book, and the title will come. And so he was right. We closed the manuscript, and it was just this WTF, Willing to Fail, jumped out. Because all my story was failure after failure after failure. Now, every failure was followed by a point of learning, and a great point of learning that took my business and took us to another level. So when you say, we became this multi-million-dollar today, we're, well over 300 million, 400 million in revenue. We made so many mistakes, but thank goodness we did. Failure is a gift, and one of my favorite mistakes that I've ever made was one of the first big ones. 1994. I'm 5 years into the business. I have 11 employees. And that old adage of one apple, bad apple spoils the whole bunch. Yeah. I had probably of my 11 employees, 9 bad apples. Wow. And it wasn't that they weren't good people. They just weren't the right fit for me. Not clean cut, professional. They didn't believe in me or the business. And so one day I brought all 11 people in for a morning meeting, and I started with 2 words. I said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I, as your leader, have let you down. I have not found the right people, trained you properly, given you the love and support that you need to be successful, and we're going to part ways. And so I fired my entire team of 11 people.
Wow.
That's a real WTF moment.
Wow.
But what it taught me was a business is all about the people you bring into your family, your business family. Find the right people, treat them right. I needed to start again. And so while I wiped out the entire team and took accountability for it, the next day I started to hire people that my filter was hire people who you could see yourself being friends with. Who would you have a beer with that you feel is interesting, interested? They believe in you, you believe in them, and they believe in the purpose of the business and what you're building bigger and better together. And so off we went, and I'd like to say the rest is history. Certainly we made other mistakes, but the one thing we do, and you referenced it earlier, is culture and people. We're really careful on who we bring into our culture so that we can have the right people and build something really special together.
So let's talk some more about that, because I hear, and I'm sure you hear it as well. Business owners, especially in the home services trade, they're always complaining about they just can't find good people. No one wants to work these days. Millennials are spoiled. No one wants to do this. No one wants to do that. And to me, that kind of negative talk really identifies a leader problem, not a environmental problem. And so speak to us a little bit more about the importance of really clearly identifying your core values and making them not just on a piece of paper that goes on a shelf somewhere and collects dust. Like, why is that such an important part at getting the right people on your team?
Yeah. Well, there's so much good stuff in that, Brandon. I think that you're